The squad is getting a tour of the impressively large shuttle they've just boarded from none other than their former squadmate Nubby. Last they'd seen him, he had been reassigned to quartermaster duties after his legs were removed by a treacherous interrogator. Now he's happily stomping around on a new pair of augmetic legs, whilst proudly explaining how he is the mission's supply officer.
Well, boys, guess who's become the new supply officer?
Nubby, I highly doubt that.
And I didn't pay attention.
I'm not even halfway surprised.
This announcement is being met with considerable skepticism by Sarge, who's the only member of the squad actually listening. Doc is paying far more attention to Nubby's new shiny legs and is interrupting the rambling tour with questions about how they've been attached.
Right, fellas, any questions? Yes, how are those new legs attached? They're quite beautiful.
Doc, I'm not surprised you got a thing for legs, but this is bad.
When Nubby doesn't provide any helpful answers, Doc asks Sarge to hold the little trooper up so he can take a look. Yes, if he did. Meanwhile, Twitch's curiosity and paranoia are driving him to find out just what's inside all the large metal containers being loaded onto the shuttle. Cutter, who found a lack of sword-related topics in the tour incredibly boring, he's helping the demolitions troopers by prying open one of the boxes. When the lid finally snaps off, both guardsmen jump back and start swearing. Doc and Sarge, who's still holding Nubby up by the shoulders, which he did lift him up.
Tell anyone about this and I'm sending your ass to the Emperor.
Okay. He came over there to see what the matter was. When Sarge sees what's inside the container, as well as the identical markings on all the containers, he starts shaking the suspended guardsman like an angry terrier.
I recognize that symbol. What have you actually brought? Nubby! Just where the hell are we taking with us a few thousand servitors?
But sir, these are actually my men. I'm commanding these.
Like hell you are!
So no shit, there we were, on a shuttle filled with tech priests and an army of servitors on our way to assist the purchase of an entire warp-capable starship for our Inquisitor. Not a normal space transport, not a shuttle, not a flyer, but an entire damned warship. The smallest of which were typically over 1 kilometer long and worth more than a dozen regiments of guard. And to top it all off, Nubby Nubs was standing there, proud as anything, telling the rest that he was in charge of the operation.
God, Emperor.
He was in charge.
Why does this galaxy hate us?
It was completely unbelievable. To clarify, this wasn't unbelievable in the sense that we couldn't fathom how the universe could be so strange and cruel. No, we literally didn't believe a word Nubby said. No one with a scrap of intelligence would send him off to buy the recaf, much less a bloody warship. Sure, we all trust Nubby at our back in a firefight any day, but the man was a petty thief, a compulsive liar, and had actually been mistaken for a Gretchen on more than one occasion. Sarge told the trooper to stuff a sock in it, and we all went to get a more realistic briefing from the tech priests that were coming with us. There seemed to be a lot of cog boys on the big cargo shuttle with us. Every room or hallway was filled with creepy metal men squawking at each other in binary. We found the one that Oak had implied was the head tech priest in a conference room, surrounded by a bunch of subordinates. It was obviously holding some sort of conference or briefing, but we couldn't understand anything of the robotic chatter. Sarge just stood there awkwardly and then started loudly clearing his throat until a few cogboys were waved away to deal with us.
As you can see, this is how we plan to resurrect the Emperor using cyberdogs. Someone go take care of the flesh. I do not want to see it.
That's what she said.
This became an annoying trend over our journey. The head tech priest and his senior funkies would never talk to us directly. We were sure they could understand Gothic, but they just never seemed to speak in anything but their damned machine language. Every time we needed to talk to one of them, a junior cogboy would be called up and act as a translator or lead us away so we wouldn't disturb the senior techies. That didn't endear them to us, and we didn't go out of our way to treat them any better. We did get pretty familiar with the junior tech priests, though.
Right, calling me a little bit too curious, but what do you guys actually spin your thrones on? We get about 50 thrones a week, and we spend that all on strippers and spirits.
We spend money on toasters and oil margaritas imported from Mars.
Hold on. Roboten knows no tenderness.
Toaster, friction, fleeces, Cyberdome.
I did not need to know that.
Well, not exactly familiar. There was a bunch of them, and it was damned hard to pick out which pile of metal tentacles was Brother Ticinius and which was Brother Casistus. Woe betray the poor guardsmen who mistook Logis Guminio for Constructor Periphanes. Such a mistake was incredibly insulting and a clear indication of our inferior intellect.
So, if I get you correctly, you are supposed to be Logis Guminio?
I am not.
Okay, fuck, I'm sorry. You are Constructor Periphanes, huh?
No, I am absolutely not.
I fucking hate cockboys.
Matters were not helped by their damn tendency to switch out their augmentics. Just when you get used to Archbrother Leximechanic Cogitus Boyus being the tall bastard with a heavy-duty servo arm, he'd replace it with some sort of sparky tentacle job and replace his legs with treads or something. We would have gone crazy if it weren't for the two lowest-ranking tech priests in the bunch. Tech acolytes Jim and Hannah.
Hi, I'm Jim. Hi, I'm Hannah.
The two acolytes were the most junior tech priests on the mission, and were obviously the Mechanicus equivalent of the regimental gopher. Every time you saw them, they'd be carrying something, moving as fast as possible without running, or covered head to toe with grease and other less pleasant fluids. We liked Jim and Hannah. They were practically kids, and most of their original part, and you could pronounce their names while drunk. Best of all, they had a wary-upon attitude which warmed the khaki-colored blobs which passed for our souls.
Well, I hope to one day become strong enough to take on demons.
Yeah, and I want to kill Xenos, especially orcs.
That's adorable.
He even wants to kill orcs.
We quickly made them into honorary guardsmen and began taking all of our questions to them. Once we met Jim and Hannah, we finally were able to get the real details out of our mission. The gist of it was that the tech priests and our squad were all being sent to discreetly purchase a second-hand warship, presumably so it would be used to carry around Oak's recruitment teams without causing a fuss. And to our collective relief, the acolytes confirmed that Nubby was not in charge of the operation.
Oh, thank the fucking Emperor.
He was merely there to act as the public face for the purchase and general observer. His superiors in supply had already chosen the ship, negotiated a price and gotten the funds to place, hired a navigator and astropath, and handed Nubby a very explicit set of orders.
Well, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do. All they said was, don't fuck it up, which... How the hell could I do that? Well, on average, you've got about 15 different reasons as to why you shouldn't be doing it, and about 14 of them lead to the destruction of the fucking galaxy.
The head Magos and the other tech priests would handle everything else, and be more or less in command of the second ship once it was deemed over and done with, and the original crew was, of course, to be evicted. They'd do the inspection, prep for the ship's travel, and perform any repairs. Finally, once the priests deemed the ship to be ready for travel, they'd use their servitor army to fly the whole damn thing back to some secret inquisitorial shipyard for a refit. This all made sense to us, but it was still a wonder that Nubby of all people had been chosen for any part of this mission. He insisted that his superiors had recognized his
acquisition skills and a personal experience with ships like this.
None to mention it.
Clever negotiation skills.
Yes. And
Cunning mercantile man.
this was bullshit, and we all knew it, and I didn't need to be sent to the Shadow Realm in order to find out. To a man, the rest of us believed that he had been sent because no one would look at him ever and think inquisitorial agent. The rest of us were there to act as backup for Nubby. Officially, this was because every procurer in the field was supposed to have a bunch of trustworthy and discreet agents to assist them. At first, we wondered just why we had been sent over other available agents, but after we figured out why Nubby had been sent, it became plain as day. Obviously, our squad had been chosen because we all looked like the sort of incompetent ex-guard goons that only a complete cretin would employ as bodyguards. Thanks, Oak.
Why the fuck would Inquisitor Oak actually have become an Inquisitor for?
Dunno. He's too much of a twat.
Because if he weren't a twat enough, he wouldn't have become one.
Oh, so when you rejected the highest status, it was because you didn't want to be looked upon as a twat?
Something like that.
Nah, don't worry, Sarge. You're our twat.
Gee, thanks.
Now, we had traveled a fair bit during our careers in the Inquisition, but this trip was something else. This time, we didn't have our own quiet section on the ship. Instead, we were surrounded by dozens of convoys running around preparing an army of servitors for crewing a warship. Everywhere you went, there would be tech priests chattering at each other, chanting and lighting incense, wielding random pieces of metal, or doing incredibly unsettling things to their servitors.
Here, servitor, I want you to equip this toaster.
But I'm just a guy, come on, why do you do this to me?
None of your business. Now equip your programming sot and get to work.
Right, I'm moving in another direction.
The ship itself was some sort of mechanicus transport, and the quarters available made us all think wishfully of the berths the Ruppet has gotten us into. Apparently, when you become a full tech priest, you stop desiring beds fancier than a wide metal sheet or food that actually has flavor. Also, mechanicus toilets can best be described as terrifying.
Is the toilet supposed to have tentacles in them?
I wish the answer was no. You know I'm fucking holding this one.
Well, I don't blame you, or you're gonna be sure to hold it till planetfall.
Don't worry, Sarge. The first thing the Vostroyans are ever taught is to hold in a massive sheet.
Alright, your funeral. We all tried to stay out of the way and keep to ourselves, but it just didn't work. We always seemed to be underfoot, or under tread, or under anti-grav skimmer. There simply wasn't enough room for anyone that wasn't a part of whatever mad plan the techies were all following. Cargo haulers would bull through us during morning PT, random tech priests would shout at us if we touched or sat on anything, and our quarters were randomly repurposed for storage, sometimes while we were still in them. No man should wake up in the dark room surrounded by 30 deactivated servitors. That's kinda cruel. None of us were happy, but Twitch had it worst of all. He just couldn't function well without a secured perimeter. We were just about ready to outright fortify a cargo bale to try and hold out against the Cog boys. Then Doc got his idea. He suggested that the only way to survive the trip was to become part of the pattern.
What the hell sort of idea do you have, Doc? What do you mean part of the pattern? Oh, piss off.
We spent the rest of the voyage following Jim and Hannah around like lost puppies. We slept when and where they slept. We ate when and where they ate. And we did our best to help with whatever unpleasant task they were working on. We probably weren't very helpful, but it kept us alive and relatively sane.
I'm telling you, what end of this is supposed to stick here?
That's a Cyberdome.
Yeah, fuck no. Okay, I'm done. Fuck this. I'm done now. Look, you guys are bloody adorable, but this is too much. I wasn't made for this.
Twitch, please?
Why does a robot know how to do puppy eyes?
It was an immense relief when we finally reached our destination. We piled onto a shuttle and rode to a local orbital station where a few scribes were waiting to relieve us of the purchase. We blew them all off and slept for about 20 hours in the blissful quiet of our cogboy-free rental rooms.
Oh, Emperor fucking bless this sheet. Oh. Hey, Cutter.
Huh?
You can now take that shit if you wanna.
Well, yeah, that's true, but maybe not.
They probably don't have any form of cogboy shit in there, so you're probably fine.
Well, I know, but that's not what I mean. I had another idea.
Oh, you wanna make it a bet?
Yeah.
Disgusting. But fine. I'll bet you 5 thrones you can't hold it until landfall.
Deal, suka.
The briefings and preliminary negotiations took about a week, and aside from Nubby, none of us really had to do anything. We more or less just hung in the hallways with various scribes that came incredibly frustrated after having been talking with Nubby. There were no assassination attempts, no cultist infiltrations, no orc commando raids, and certainly no gene stealer attacks. Just a bunch of boring guard duties whilst Nubby drove various expensive lawyers and financial experts into a state of incoherent rage. One of them did actually try to kill him, but since Nubby had just stolen the man's wallet, it was perfectly understandable. We did pay little attention to what was going on. Guard duty was boring, and there weren't really hiding any documents or diagrams. Most of it was legal gibberish, ancient trade logs, and figures about engine strength and storage capacity, none of which we were even going to try to understand. But there were some nice pictures. From what we saw, the ship was a small one, only 2 kilometers long, and was rather plain looking, just the sort of ship for traveling around unnoticed. The negotiations continued and some of the tech priests were sent over to inspect the ship. They took a while, but confirmed that the ship met all requirements. That done with, all that was left was the final meeting between Nubby and the current owner of the vessel. Some fancy rooms were rented out for the deal, and Nubby was crammed into a thrilly suit complete with a powered wig. It was probably supposed to make him look like a dashing imperial nobleman, but it really made him look like a Gretchen in a dress. It was hard to not laugh as we followed him to the meeting, and when we saw the man selling the ship, it became nearly impossible.
Holy shit, that's a big man.
That's not a man. That's a space station.
Too small to be a space station, that's a moon.
The man was practically spherical, comedically clumsy, and honked like a goose when he walked. He radiated an aura of incompetence and was followed by a cadre of thugs who all had the same suffused expression we did.
My lord, rogue trader von Gasten has arrived. You may now pay tribute by gazing upon the perfect flame that is my being.
Oh, no, he thinks himself a rogue trader. Please kill me.
The worst part was that the man obviously thought of himself as a rogue trader, and he tried to dress the part. He must have gone through some catalog and ordered one of everything. He had the gaudy coat with epaulets, the large head on his shoulder. The problem was that while most rogue traders ooze confidence and danger, this man just oozed. We'd seen, fought, and redecorated a bathroom with the head of a real rogue trader before. This guy was just like a kid playing dress-up.
You must be the one that has come to purchase this ship. What is thy name?
My name's Nubby. Lord Nubby.
Lord Nubby, then. I am Lord Van Gasten, and I shall now help you with the purchase of this ship. Let us parley.
Well, I sure don't know what parlay means, but let's go.
We just barely managed to keep our faces straight while Nubby and the Lord von Vonnaby greeted each other. Both of them were handed the relevant documents by their scribes and headed into a private room to complete the deal. The second the door closed behind them, the fat man's guards cracked up, and we did likewise. It was just too much to bear. Both sets of scribes just shared a miserable look and settled down to wait. The meeting took a surprisingly long time, and we all started to get nervous. Every part of the deal had been hammered out beforehand, and just supposed to be a matter of signing off. Emperor only knew what Nubby was getting up to in there. Neither of them hit their panic buttons, though, so we sat tight and eventually both men came out alive and relatively well. Nubby had a disturbingly smug look on the face, and the seller seemed rather flustered. But both of them insisted that everything was sorted out. The scribes did a final review of the signed documents, got into a brief whispering argument with Nubby and the fat man, and then loudly confirmed that everything was in order. The seller's scribes said that all of their men would be off the ship within 30 hours, and the whole party made a rather hasty exit. That's done with, we headed back to our quarters and passed the word to the tech priests. The Kong boys confirmed that they were ready to board the ship and take it over as soon as the former crew was out of the way. From here on out, it was entirely their mission. We were just passengers and observers. All our squad had to do was to keep out of the way until we arrived at the shipyard and someone would come to collect us.
Alright, so this is a retired war vessel, right? This thing has seen combat, and I am not going in that thing if it's been bloody damaged during the fighting, and they are not telling us about it.
Twitch, have you been reading ahead of us?
No.
The tech priests told us to stay in our quarters until they had their servitors in place, so we finished our business with the scribes, settled in for a few days of relaxation on the station, and asked Nubby about what happened during the meeting.
That man did not have an eye for business. I managed to haggle him down quite well.
You sucked him off, didn't you?
Nope.
According to him, the former captain had been a terrible negotiator and was easily haggled down. The little bugger was smug as hell about the whole thing and expected a big thank you from Oak for saving him 1 billion thrones. None of us really believed him. Nubby was always that full of shit sort of guy. But the scribes were happy, so it wasn't really our problem. In retrospect, not grilling Nubby and finding out exactly what sort of deal he got or how he managed to get it was a terrible mistake. A few days of idleness later, our shuttle was sent for us, and we were taken aboard the newest addition to Oak's fleet, the Free Trader Occurrence Boarder. As we approached the ship, everyone clustered around the windows to get a good look at our purchase. A lot of things about the Occurrence Boarder grabbed the eye. There were the massive tanks of hauling fluids, the impressive arrays of docking hatches along the cargo base, the odd variations in the color and design of the hull. But mostly there was the fact that the ship was about half as long as the diagram said it should be. It was amazing, really. The Occurrence Boarder mostly followed the standard Imperial ship design. Large engines in the tail, control tower rising above the rear of the ship, long and slightly skinny body, except the bow that was completely gone for some reason. The ship just ended half through the body in a giant patchwork of scrap metal. It looked like someone had grabbed the ship, cut it with a giant cleaver, and then smashed the ragged edge flat. As we all turned to look at Nubby, who muttered something about good value for cost and tried to slide away.
Well, I've got some things I've got to get.
Nobody!
No, I...
You want to tell me exactly what the fuck
No,
happened?
Captain, I swear I didn't do nothing.
Nothing, huh? Where's half of the ship gone?
It sort of just fell off.
Oh, you moron!
It took a lot of shaking and yelling to get all the details out of Nubby. Apparently, the front fell off. The entire front of the vessel, a 2-kilometer warp-capable ship, which we had just purchased for a staggering amount of money on behalf of the fucking Inquisition, fell off. He said it doesn't happen often. It's just a sort of occasional time-to-time thing. Overall, it's a very safe ship. In fact, while the whole lifetime of the ship, it only happened once or twice. Well, maybe 3 times. Definitely more than 4, but the important thing was that it would never happen again. The previous captain had fixed the problem for good by installing the special-made custom prow after the last incident.
Nubby, we set our expectations pretty damn low because we know it was you. And you didn't even manage to pass those. Congratulations! You're the dumbest sod in the entire Imperium.
Sounds to me like the goblin is calling the snotling stupid.
We all eyed the mushroom-shaped pile of slagged scrap in front of the ship and contemplated just what Oak would do to us. It probably would involve an excruciator and an airlock. The rest of the flight was split between yelling at Nubby and staring at the ship with a sort of morbid curiosity. The closer we got, the more imperfections came apparent. There were scars and burns, holes and gorges, and the most bizarre set of repairs and additions imaginable. The entire ship must have been stripped off and replaced with spare part, one piece at a time, until nothing of the original was left visible. It was a wonder that that thing flew at all. Doc suggested that we might not get yelled at by Oak for any of this, because there was no way we'd survive the warp voyage home in this hulk, if we're lucky. Eventually, the shuttle docked, and we walked into one of the Occurrence Boarder's more intact cargo bays. Hannah, the cog girl, was waiting there to guide us to our quarters. She led us through a maze of tunnels and gave us a rundown of situation on the way. Most of the servitors were in place, the navigator and astropath were on board, and the last few repairs and calibrations would have been made during the trip. After a while, Sarge cautiously asked her what the tech priests thought about the state of the ship. Her response surprised us. She cheerily informed us that the entire vessel was an abomination in the eyes of the Omnissiah, and perfectly met all requirements. That second part was a little confusing, but according to her, the whole point was to acquire a thoroughly disputable vessel that was still capable of running. The cog boys didn't care if half the hull was missing, if the cargo base leaked atmosphere, or if most of the ship was pieced together from old wrecks. As long as it could travel through the warp, they were happy. After all, they were just there to take it to the shipyard. The priests were the ones who would be refitting it for inquisitorial use. Nubby picked up at this, but Sarge reminded him that if the tech priests were happy, the people who were paying for the ship and its refits probably wouldn't be. As we walked, all of us noticed dozens of papers fixed to panels, doors, and controls and such. At first, we thought they were usual purity seals or mechanical sprayers, but then Twitch stopped to actually read a few. Each one said something like, this control panel governs the flow of plasma through base 3DS15. No one remembers why we have plasma going through there, but if you shut them off, engines 3 and 7 stop working. The gravity in this corridor is tilted 37 degrees to the left, and do never touch this button. That last one showed up a lot.
Well, this feels fucking assuring.
Sorry, Sarge, don't know a hell of a lot about ships. Luckily, I got a friend of mine who knows a hell of a lot more about them than I do. I'll give him a call real quick. Hey, Nubby!
Yep.
When we asked Hannah about the notes, she lowered her voice and advised us to take them very seriously. They had been left there by the former crew and were incredibly helpful, but we were never to mention them to anyone more than the senior tech priests. The cogboys were trying to ignore them since they didn't need advice from anyone outside of the priesthood, but unfortunately the notes were far more accurate than their own scans. The senior priests were taking it as a personal insult every time they had to refer to one of the notes to fix a problem. We chuckled at that and promised to read any note we came across. Eventually, we arrived at a cluster of rooms that Jim the Acolyte was cleaning out with the help of a bunch of servitors. He suggested that these would make good quarters, pointing us towards the storage closet with some relatively edible rations in it, handed us data slates with a crude map of the ship, and recommended that we stay out of the way for the servitors and tech priests. Once we were settled in, the two acolytes scramped off to their next task. Sarge booted up the data slate, and about 10 seconds after Hannah had disappeared with Jim into the giant maze that was our metal ship, we realized that none of us knew how to read three-dimensional maps.
Doc, you're the only one with brains here. How come you can't read the map?
I'm a doctor, not a tech priest, damn it. I'm not supposed to read maps, I'm supposed to read inscriptions as to who is supposed to have what medicine.
Yeah, but you know the magical knowledge of how to read, Doc.
You don't know how to read?
No!
That explains so much.
The ensuing argument over whose job it had been to check the map earlier and what we were going to do now was interrupted when the ship speakers blared to life. There was a painful burst of binary, followed by a monotone voice telling all hands to prepare for warp transit. Then the universe went glorp and tasted like the color purple for a second. The one good thing you could say about the situation was that no one was trying to kill us. At least not on purpose, anyway. On the other hand, we were cruising through the warp in a twisted heap of scrap held together with tape and spit. None of us knew where in the ship we were or how to read our map. Now, being lost is a long-standing tradition in the Guard, but this was ridiculous. It's hard enough to navigate in 2 dimensions with an accurate map and a directional finder. 3 with an unreadable map and no way to tell which way you're facing is just unfair. With the ration bars, we might have actually starved to death in our own ship, or at least been reduced to hunting the servitors for food. After our quarters were secured, we started to try track down one of the tech priests. We wanted to know where everyone else was, what was going on, and how the hell to read our map. Our comms didn't work for shit inside all of this metal, and we didn't have access to the ship's communication system. So our research had to be done the old-fashioned way, on foot, with hand-drawn maps and trail makers. We didn't feel like passengers on a ship. It was more like we were a recon force plotting hostile terrain, and oh boy was the terrain hostile. There were gravity shifts, depressurized sections of the ship, exposed power conduits, room filled with hot plasma, and dozens of other hazards. Still, even though everything they said was helpful, the notes themselves were still disconcerting. They tend to be a little too precise, and Twitch swore that more of them were appearing in areas where we had already been through.
I mean, seriously, there are more notes. Take a look at this one. Here's another one. It says, no face, no eyes. What the fuck was that supposed to mean?
Oh no.
Doc was leading the patrol that found the first tech priest. Unfortunately, he refused to speak to us and ducked through a hatch, which locked behind him. The second priest we found wasn't giving the chase. Doc and Nobby covered the exits while Cutter tackled the cogboy. Holding someone at gunpoint and asking them for technical support and directions probably isn't the officially sanctioned way of doing this sort of thing. At least not when they're on your side. But damned if it didn't work. The conversation was a little awkward, though. The tech priest turned out to be the one who was briefing us during the trip and was perfectly willing to talk to us. we did apologize. Once we learned how to use the map, we realized that it was mostly empty space, but it did cover most of the important parts of the ship. It mapped out some of the bigger loading bays, the quarters the techies were using, the location of several critical systems, and the giant spinal shipping corridor, and even the freight lifts that the current ship occupants were using. The best part was that the terrified tech priest showed us how to fill in the blank spots and add notes, which meant that we no longer had to depend on Doc's hand-drawn maps to get back to our base. Not that Doc was a bad artist, mind you. He just had a little trouble figuring out how to draw a corridor that angled up and left while its gravity shifted in the right wall. With the map in hand, our Recon patrol released the tech priest to go grease servitors or whatever, and went off to find the two helpful techies. The rough plan was to get a hand with the comm situation from the acolytes, but unfortunately they weren't in the quarters indicated on the map. Doc was drifting about whether to keep searching or wait for them to return. Then Nubby suggested getting them to come to us. Based on our past experiences, Nubby argued if we just annoyed enough of the senior tech priests or started breaking things, one of the acolytes would be sent to deal with us.
I don't know, it sounds a little too... No! What are you doing? You got your destroyed... No!
Doc watched in horror as Nubby and Cutter went to work, but he didn't actually do anything to stop them. 3 gutted cogitator terminals, 2 corridors flooded with coolant, another filled with less pleasant substances, and a dismembered maintenance servitor later, Sarge's comm went alive. An exhausted-sounding tech acolyte Jim asked him to pick up his team before someone killed them.
Okay. No one has destroyed anything, right? Right? Oh.
We still couldn't use the ship's comms. The acolytes said it was restricted to the priests for some techie reason, but our comm beads were being boosted by the larger system. Combined with a functioning map and Jip and Hannah's personal contact codes, we had everything we'd need to survive the rest of the trip. So we all went back to base to get some night's sleep. Well, if not a night's sleep, then at least a solid 10 hours worth. The ship's light system seemed to be on several different clocks, and the ones in our quarters dimmed on 3-hour cycles. Twitch eventually shut them all out, and we just used our own night lamps. Now, just to be clear, none of us in the squad was a sissy, and none of us had ever had the trouble with warp travel before. We'd all faced down some incredibly weird and scary shit during our time in the Guard, not to mention that we'd seen as inquisitorial goons. Our nerves might not be made of steel, but they were definitely iron, or possibly some good quality bronze. That said, the nightmares we had that night were bloody terrifying.
My dear Sororita, no!
No, don't leave me with
I'm a
women.
better man.
Sucker!
They steal my fluids.
Don't steal my fucking chin sword, sucker! No! Mate,
That part you'll steal its fluids.
Guided by the God, please don't leave me with the squad. I fucking hate Nubby.
They were the sort of nightmares that takes every fear and failure in your life and rubs them in your face whilst you struggle to wake up and tell yourself it's all a dream. We all woke up covered in sweat when one of Twitch's perimeter alarms went off. We didn't even check what set off the alarm. All of us just sat there and thanked the Emperor for Twitch's paranoia. After a few minutes, Doc got up and pulled a yellow note off of the inside of the door. It said, "In case of bad dreams, check Geller Field integrity." The note had not been there when we went to sleep.
Great, awesome, fantastic. We got demonic post-it notes that appear out of bloody nowhere, and now we're supposed to follow those orders. That is fucking stupid.
Well, what do you think, then? We don't have a hell of a lot of choice. I think if we're gonna get to the bottom of this, we're gonna follow the demonic post-it notes.
that is a fucking terrible idea.
Yeah, no, good idea. Let's go and do that. Come on, let's go.
Twitch, you Peter Resident, this is not what we are supposed to be doing.
There's nothing else we can do. Also, this is the end of the episode because Freeman's lazy.
Fucking course.
Yeah, pretty accurate, actually. Hey guys, Freeman here. Welcome back to this very much so long overdue episode of the Old Guardsmen Party. And again, it's not even the full episode. This is part 1 of episode 6. So, what is this? Why have I released it this way? Well, there is a reason for that, and I will get into that as of right now. So, I've been gone for quite some time. I've just not done anything online. I've been posting a little bit on Twitter, very little on YouTube, and I've held your guys' hopes up and then done nothing. I've been really burnt out. I've been really trying to push myself to make this video, but it just hasn't come to me. I make a few minutes at a time, and I just, like, I feel a sudden, like, burning will just to not do it. And it's not fun in that sense. So, like, the constant thought of, like, these videos getting longer and longer. Like, last video was 2 hours long. It took me ages and tired me to shit. So, yeah, no, I'm gonna start doing these more chopped up because it's gonna take too long and it's just hell to do. So that's not the only thing though. The reason as to why I was a little bit gone was because I was supposed to upload a video a little while ago. I posted about it on Twitter, I posted about it on my Discord server and everything. I haven't uploaded a lot for other reasons as well. And one of those reasons is because of the fact that the newest policies from Games Workshop have come up regarding how it's going to treat its fan base's various projects, I suppose. Or, well, how it's going to treat its IPs, I guess is the best way to put it. And I do not like the way they've gone about doing it. I really don't. And I'm not alone on this. I've decided, therefore, I'm not going to be doing anything Warhammer 40k related for a while. The only thing I might do is this, you know, all Guardsmen party, because it's my baby. I can't drop that. But I had some ideas I really wanted to do that I am not going to do now. For example, I was having an idea of making almost like a Good Morning Vietnam radio show, or even animated show, 2 to 5 minutes long each, with just stupid shit happening. But it would be 40k. But no, that's not gonna happen. And same goes for a drinking game. I was also in the works of talking about a 40k drinking game, which was gonna be animated and a lot of other stuff. That's not gonna happen either now. I am burnt out on Warhammer. They just treat their IP and their fan base like shit in a sense. I really don't like it. So I'm not going to do anything. I don't know how I'm going to fare under these new things, because I've made videos with animated 40k shit. I've got a music video up. I've got another video up that the music video is in, but it's also more animations in that. So it's not really looking good on my end either. So in order to stop this from becoming something that I don't want it to be, which is a fucking lawsuit, I'm just not going to do anything related to Warhammer. So how is the future going to look then for me in regards to Warhammer? What am I going to do then? Well, I mean, the channel has always been focused on a lot of other things. Things like Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games, which is something I still hold on to a lot. And with this new microphone that I'm using, which is the one you're hearing me talk through right now, it's the one I'm going to be using a hell of a lot more now to be doing some projects. And one project I've actually already started on is going to have you guys a little bit happier, because you might wonder, am I going to be out entirely of Warhammer? No. On the channel, mostly. But elsewhere? No. I've not been hired by Games Workshop, don't worry. But I have been picked up by another project. So, some of you guys probably remember the wonderful game Dawn of War, and the wonderful expansions that it had, such as Dark Crusade and, Soulstorm, which was... Anyway. The thing that I want to say is, I've been picked up by the guys that are doing the Unification mod, and I'm going to be working with them on doing some voices. As a matter of fact, I have been. As of recording this video, I have voiced a large section, if not every section, of the Marine Corps for the
Ordo Xenos. You know what that means? The Death Watch.
So I've been recording a lot of lines as different characters for different chapters in the Death Watch. And they're going to be part of the mod. Now, if you don't know what the Unification mod is, let me tell you real quick. The Unification mod is a remaster of Dawn of War that they never got. Dawn of War never got a official remaster, and this is an unofficial one that they're doing in the form of a mod. And it's a hell of a lot easier to install than that of Ultimate Apocalypse, which was a hassle. I don't know if it still is a hassle. I bet it still is, but yeah, this one isn't a hassle to anywhere near the same degree. So, yeah, I'm going to be in that. And as a matter of fact, as of recording this video, I've done pretty much every one of them. And to give you a little bit of spice, I shall give you some of those voice lines. And if you want this mod for yourself, I will link the webpage down below where you can find it. It's free, so just go ahead. And you can also check the Discord server that they have as well, where you can grab it, where they constantly put updates as well, if you find that to be a little bit easier to keep a track of. But that's it for me this time. More videos coming whenever. We'll see what's happening, but I can tell you that it's going to be far more D&D oriented in the future. Now, let's give you a little bit of that 40k action in the form of my favorite voice lines from the mod. Enjoy.
For us and the All-Father, we are storm, we are fury. Strength in purity, into the fires of battle, into the anvil of war. For those we cherish, we die in glory. Victory or death. Fear not death, we who embody it in his name. Primarch Progenitor, to your glory and the glory of him on earth. For Dawn and Primarch.
The flesh is weak.
We seek the sword of the lion. Power is knowledge, we guard it well. There is only the Emperor. He's our shield and protector. By the blood of Sanguinius, the Khan and the Emperor, we follow the Codex Astartes.